Good morning, good people. Today is Sunday, October 20th, 2024. Here we are in wonderful Pahrump, west of Sin City, east of Death Valley. Or I could say it this way, Death Valley is to our west, Sin City is to our east, and here we are right in the middle, Pahrump, you choose. It is about almost 6 o'clock in the morning, and here we are once again. Today, and this is G.school, which is part of our daily routine, our daily, what did we say? Our daily dose of it. So I'm thinking about two things, today's meme and yesterday's tech thing in Las Vegas that I went to, which was kind of mind-blowing. So I'm still processing on that. And then over there, the espresso machine is going. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think they call it a mocha, something like that, in Italy, where you're making a cup of coffee. The old-fashioned way, steam. Okay, anyway, here we are. Our goal, our job is to help our students and others through this life, this journey through life, this journey where the destination is what happens next. That's the destination, what happens next. And it appears there is compelling evidence that we have a transcendent soul and that the Shroud of Turin was the burial cloth of Jesus. If it is the burial cloth of Jesus, then we should take what he said to heart, like we should do it. If he said, my dad sent me to tell you whoever believes in me will have everlasting life, and then he tells you what to do, and then it turns out that after being crucified, he was actually resurrected, and we have evidence of it, then maybe we should do what he says. Not what people who came after him said as they were trying to build the church. Right? So we're here to help people through that life and prepare for what's next. Monday through Friday, we do it the normal way. We focus on 4 things: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Well, we focus on 3 of those: physical, mental, and emotional. 3 of the 4 legs of a table. And if you think about having a solid life, this journey is like a table, 4-legged table. You need to have 4 strong legs. Then upon the table, you pile all of the things that you've accomplished, all of the things that you've done. You pile on that table. Now, if you have a weak leg, your table's not going to hold as much. If you're missing a leg, it's not going to hold as much. You got to put everything down at the opposite end and kind of have the weight distributed around that one leg. So if you're physically not fit, if you're physically not healthy, all of the things that would be associated with being healthy, you can't do. You're not going to be a hiker. You're not going to be a basketball player. You're not going to be physically active. And then that's going to affect everything else on the table. You won't be able to do anything or many things that require physical activity. So, 4-legged table, focus on all 4 legs. On the weekend, we focus on the spiritual leg because that's actually the most important, because that's what we're going to face when we, what do they call it? Transition. When we transition to the next place, that's what we're going to have to deal with. So, I'm going to pour a cup of coffee. Got my maybe I'll just put it right there. Right chair. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus. Today's focus is, once again, suffering, part 2, but this time from the perspective of Jesus. What did Jesus say and do about suffering? What can we learn about suffering from Jesus? Not the Old Testament, not the rest of the New Testament, just what can we learn about suffering from Jesus? But before we do that, Johnny, before we do that, let's look at our worksheet for today. Advice from an 80-year-old. Loosen up, relax. Except for rare life and death matters, nothing is as important as it first seems. True. So I like to say, it's only life. Don't worry about it. It's only life. And the things to worry about are after life, after we transition. Spooky language. Next, TED Talk. Blaine Elkers, Waiteba. What you think about, you bring about. This has to do with the reticular activating system in the brain and how to prime the RAS. What you think about, you bring about. All right. Let's see, what was that little beep there? Okay, what you think about, you bring about. Seth Godin, quickly. Foundering or floundering? Foundering or floundering? This is a short one. Floundering is flopping around and making little progress. A Dutch word for getting mired and lost. There was a fish floundering on the floor. Okay. Foundering is what we call it when the ship goes down. It's an ancient French word based on bottom. Foundering. I thought it was the act of starting a company or starting an enterprise. No. Yes, it's when a ship goes down. The ship has foundered. Too often, our desperate attempt to not founder, we flounder. To not founder, we flounder. Better, I think, to go down with energy and direction than to simply meander. Turns out that calmly executing a plan makes it less likely you'll sink. Aha. To go down with energy, does that mean go down like sink with energy and direction than to simply meander? Okay, so I guess that would be better to sink, boom, fail fast, than to like, we're just out here somewhere. I don't know what. Maybe we'll find our way one day. Maybe we'll get back on track. Who knows? Anyway, something to think about. Something to think about. Seth Godin. Good morning, Diana. We're going to start talking about suffering, part 2. Good morning, Maticus Von Atticus. Are you going to pack up and head over? Why don't you just come over for a few days? Just pack lightly, come over for a few days. We've got a good bunch of guys I think you'd like in 14, 15. I think they would like you. You don't know any of them. You might know one guy, a guy that is the dishwasher from Carmine's, Tristan. Anyway, maybe that's what you should do. Just pack up today, head over just for a couple days. Get your mind clear, nice drive. Cool, crisp morning. Here it's in the 50s. So just your type of refreshing. We can go for a walk up the hill, go to the quarry, see if that vehicle's still there, etc. Okay, suffering from the POV of who? From the POV of Jesus. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to have dinner with a Dominican priest. We talked a little bit about suffering, but we mainly talked about Gandhi neurons and Ramachandran and mapping oneself to someone else. Very good dinner. And this is a person who was a social worker before becoming a priest. So he's used to the human predicament. And from Texas, Father Gary has a prison ministry, jail ministry. That's what he's called to do. And I think we should collaborate as much as possible. So, suffering from the perspective of Jesus. Okay. Part of the problem with suffering is people try to resist it. They deny it. I'm not suffering, but inside they're suffering. And they're trying to overcome it, resist it, fight it. What else do we do with suffering? We try to coping mechanisms, right? We try to use coping mechanisms to ease the suffering. What did Jesus do when he was on the cross? Was he suffering? Was he physically suffering? Yeah. Was he mentally suffering? Well, a normal person would be mentally suffering because they were mocking him, right? They put a crown of thorns on his head. They put a thing over his head, an inscription, King of the Jews, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. They were taunting him. Okay, if you're the Messiah, if you're the anointed one, if you're the Son of God, get yourself down from there, have the angels come and save you, etc. Did he fight it? Doesn't look like he fought the suffering, because Pilate even commented that he only lasted 6 hours. Now, on the other hand, he was beaten pretty badly before they put him on the cross. But maybe he, instead of fighting it, pushing himself up, breathing, that would be the natural thing to do, and fighting it, maybe he just decided to succumb. Like, here's the suffering. I know what's coming next. What's the point of fighting it? What's the point of fighting the suffering? The point might be to accept it and then move on. Go to what's next. Accept the suffering and go to what's next. It seems to me when people are being tortured, when we see it in the movies of being tortured, we're kind of conditioned to fight the torture, fight it. Did Jesus fight the suffering? There's no indication that he fought back at all. Not before he was arrested, not while he was being arrested, not once he was arrested and being interrogated by the priests, not when he was talking to Pilate the first time, not when he saw Herod, not when he talked to Pilate again, not when he talked to Pilate again, not when he was put on the cross. There doesn't seem to be any indication that he was fighting the suffering. Now, at other times, would he avoid the suffering? Like, hey, they're after us. Let's get out of here. We're going to stone you. No, not today. He didn't say, bring it on. I'm ready for it. That is what I did at first. Then I looked at it a different way. Of course, I don't like to suffer, yet I stop fighting what I can't control. Okay, so that's a kind of a Stoic thing, right? Now, Jordan Peterson says the one universal thing with all people is people don't like pain. People really don't like pain. And it's, I think, even the people who are masochists, they don't like pain per se. They might like specific pain, type of pain at a specific type point in time, but they're not really, they don't like pain because our bodies are not designed to enjoy pain. Our bodies are designed to sort of avoid, reject pain. So, but what we kind of feel we're conditioned to do is fight the suffering. I'm going to fight through it. Now, it doesn't mean so to accept it I don't think it means to say, bring it on, give me more. I want to suffer more. I think it's a thing of, it's what it is. This is it right now. It's painful, emotionally, maybe physically, spiritually. It's painful right now. One of two things are going to happen. Well, one of three things. It could get worse, it could stay the same, or it could get better. And a Stoic would say, okay, great. I can't control the fact that I'm in this, but is there anything I can do to end it? Can I end the suffering? And if the answer is yes, then it would be, well, is it the right thing to do to end the suffering? Like if somebody says, we'll stop torturing you if you tell us where the bigger prize is. Okay, it might be better to not, to continue suffering would be the good thing. But at some point it will end, right? Suffering will always end. It'll either end because it ends, or it'll end because we die. And for some people in life, their life is suffering. That's all it is. Will it end? Yes. What does Jesus tell us? If you did this, this, and this, if you believed in me, and did what I told you to do, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, love one another as I have loved you, make disciples of all nations. If you have done that, it doesn't matter whether you suffered or not. And again, let's go back to this thing of time. 100 years of suffering is like the width of a hair on your head compared to a 7 and 8 mile, almost an 8-mile walk. Can you put up with that amount of suffering for that amount of joy? Or how bad would the suffering have to be? How bad would the suffering have to be for this hair width of suffering to be worse than that? If we put it on a scale, okay? There's one hair on your head of suffering, times suffering, versus 7.84 miles of bliss and joy. So this is supposed to be, the bliss and joy is supposed to be without comprehension. Unimaginable bliss and joy. It would seem that there's no amount of suffering that could tilt the scale so that suffering is more than this. Okay, so it's probably like bunk. It's off the scale. Here's the suffering. Here's the joy. The joy is so much greater than any amount of suffering we could endure or we could experience during our life isn't anything compared to what comes next if we do what Jesus said. The bad thing would be to suffer and not get the reward. Right? That would be the bad thing. Suffer but not get the reward. So I would think that would be somebody who leads some of these famous people who commit suicide. They commit suicide because they're suffering, because they believe they are suffering, because it's too painful, right? But then it was painful because they didn't do what Jesus asked. They lived a hedonistic, very bad life. It was painful. And what greets them now after they've committed suicide? The lake of fire. Okay, we're at 19 minutes in. Glad everybody was there. If you forgot about the pain when you see your baby, okay, we'll quickly talk about that. So you have pain. You could say you're suffering during pre-childbirth. You could say you're suffering, right? Pain, physical pain. I don't know about emotional pain. I just don't know. But certainly physical pain. But then once the child is born, what? Massive amounts of oxytocin. The pain is gone. The pain is masked, but it will return. But not then. It'll go away when you see your baby again. So anyway, that's a long one today. See you guys tomorrow. Find Wada Bebby. Where is you at? Bonk.